Proximity is key. You want to borrow the belief system, the physiology, and the mental syntax of your mentor, of the person you trade places with, if they're not your mentor, if they're someone that you admire, because their belief system is powerful, because belief leads to action. Right? When you believe in something, the only reason you're not taking action in something is because you believe that it might be a waste of your time or it might not work. But if you were to reframe the question, like, what would you do today if you knew you could not fail? If I said, hey, if you do this thing, you will get this result. I mean, you and I both know you're pretty intellectual. If you're listening to this, there's a good chance you're going to do it. The only issue is sometimes is the output is not guaranteed. And so what you need is someone to guide you and say, trust the process. I did it. It worked for me. I'm just like you. I'm no smarter than you. I may be even dumber than you. I may have even had less than what you had when you got started, and it worked for me.
Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor? Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it? Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Are you surrounding yourself close to the people who have the thing that you want? Are you in proximity to them? And the reason I ask this question is, if you're not, then why not? And the reason this is an important question to ask, because there is power in being in proximity to the things and results in people that we admire and things that we want. And if you're not in proximity to those things, then you're going to have a harder mountain to climb by law. Let's unwrap it. And the reason I raised this is this weekend, I got a chance to be close to one of my mentors. We're in the same room. We got a chance to sit down for lunch and really talk about, where I was at and questions that I have. And one of the things that my mentor has taught me is that in order to have the thing, you must first do the thing. But in order to do the thing, you then must become the person. In order to become the person, you must borrow the mental syntax, the physiology, and belief system of someone who's already been there. And there's a reason why the highest level athletes, the highest level actors, whoever you can think of who has had success, has had a guide where they were able to borrow the belief system from them, because it's really hard for most individuals to truly visualize something that they don't have a grasp on. And what happens is when you do have someone close that has the thing you want, it then makes it possible. Or when you are able to borrow a belief system from them, it then now makes that belief possible, because someone else is believing in you more than you believe in yourself. And that's why great mentors, great coaches are able to get that out of you. And it's important that, there's a saying that says, you can bring what is it? Forget what kind of animal to the well, but at the end they got to drink it. And so what you have to do is put yourself in that environment, to be able to start consuming and absorbing, because it's just like the analogy, if you put a sponge into an ocean, it has, by law, it has to absorb the water that's around it. And so my question is, have you put yourself in the environment in the direction towards the place that you're trying to go? Have you even thought of where you want to go? I think I mentioned this on another podcast, another show I was recording, how I had, spoken to a girl at my alma mater who was working the front desk, and I asked her, hey, what do you want to do after school, etc. And she said something that really hit me. She said she hadn't really thought about or even made the time to think about where she was going. And the reason that's dangerous, it's not that, again, younger kid, but at the same time, it's still a lot of adults don't even know where they're going. They're just on autopilot. And it's easy to get on autopilot, right? You take the first job that you get, you pick the first property that you see, and just kind of roll with the punches, but you don't really reverse engineer like where you want things, where you want to land, starting with the end in mind. And if that's the case and you start thinking about where you want to land, then you should start being able to reverse engineer and asking yourself, does my present self, does GPS? Is it calibrated to go there? Do I even have a destination set on that GPS, or am I just driving around? Because if you get into a car and you don't have a GPS and a guide or any direction that you're going to, you'll soon run out of gas without being able to attain your destination. Or for all my EV drivers out there, you'll run out of battery, right? And we don't want to do that, right? So we at least want to have, uh, a map that shows us where we need to recharge, where we need to have a gas, make a stop at an exit to recharge. But you only have those once you've actually mapped out a final destination of where you want to go. And you don't have to figure out the how. That was my biggest lesson of 2024. Trying to figure out how to get there usually is what stops people from taking the next step. But it's the destination is very important. What do you want your day to look like? What do you want your life to look like? What you want your day to day to look like? What gives you energy? What drains you? What more things do you want? What experiences do you want? Who do you want in your life? Who do you not want in your life? Like, what do you want to drive? What house do you want to live in? Like, I think about this stuff every single day, and therefore my compass is very, very straightforward. I know exactly what I'm going, the coordinates. It doesn't mean that along the way, I don't run into challenges. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna record a separate episode on the challenges that I faced, what some of the lessons were. But then at the same time, because I have the compass, I also know that there's always bumps on the road. There's always construction. Some roads are closed. Then you have to take a reroute, right? So, I could name this so many different names when I think of this episode, but I want to just bring it back to the proximity because I think it's a fundamental oversight that we often overlook. And the best tip I can say, no matter where you are, whether you're a college student coming out, whether you're someone in your career looking to make a pivot, whether you're an investor who's burnt out, where your model's not working for you, you need to find a person who has the result that you want, that you would be so glad to exchange places with. Now, I say that lightly because you shouldn't want to exchange places with anyone, right? Your life is your life. But I say that in the sense of empowerment and admiration. Who do you admire? Who would you actually trade places with if you could? That's an indicator of like, okay, I want that result. And if you want that result, then now you need to think about who is the person who has that result, right? And once you've identified the person that has that result, what is the process that they took? Now, YouTube is great. Wherever you're listening to this, Spotify is great. So do that in itself. I do believe that at this point, it's not, it's not your wealth isn't necessarily determined by the six people you're closest to, but mostly the six resources you listen to the most or you tap into the most. I feel like I hang out with a lot of my I hang out with a lot of people I've never met before, but then usually, often, or where I'm at in my life, I take a layer deeper and I get in proximity. I want to talk to those people who have those results. I want to befriend them. I want to be in their inner circle. I pay for access. Yes, you should pay for access. Anyone who's gotten the result that you want, if they're easily accessible, that probably means that, I don't know, there's different levels, right? If you're really trying to aspire for something big, there's a good chance that person's not going to just be readily available for you to head them up whenever you want. Now, being accessible on social media, etc., making yourself accessible. I make myself accessible through my mental coaching hot seat, which I do once a month, where you can get on 15 minutes on the air with me or less and ask me 3 questions or less for free. And that contributes to the content that the community can benefit from by asking questions. And so that's something that I've utilized. But if that person is not making themselves accessible, it probably means because there's a high demand for what they do, which is a good sign that you're following the right person. But then don't be afraid to think about, pay to get access. My gosh, like all the mentors I've gotten access to, even some of my own friends, I've paid because I respect their time and the result they can have. And the reason I say this is it's not to make a statement about who you should pay or if you're not, but you should find a way to get in proximity, whether you got to barter, do an exchange of business. I'll do this for you, do that for me. You teach me how to do that. I think Alex Ramosi was talking about how he used to go above and beyond and I think help in his sales or help these companies in exchange for like them to teach him a model of something that he wasn't aware with. Like bartering can still exist, right? If you get very creative, I believe in that. But I say all that to say this is you really want to be in proximity of the people that you admire, whose goals you want, because proximity does have its secrets, proximity does have their insights, and most importantly, proximity can give you the permission whenever you're in doubt, you're 50-50, you're not really sure, they can give you the permission that, yeah, this is the path I would totally take if I was in your shoes, or this is the path that I took when I was in your shoes. And lo and behold, I think now the steps that people are taking now, the times are changing so quickly that it's really important that you speak to your mentor and ask them, would they have done the same thing? Because in this ever changing, fast pace world that we live in without technology, sometimes, and tools and access, sometimes I know a lot of times when I ask my mentors, would you do this the same? Now, a lot of it is hindsight 2020. I would do this differently, but also a lot of it is, hey, because now I have this new information, because now we have these new tools, here's how I would have saved time in the past, again focusing on the exact same principles to get to the end goal, but would utilize this to help you get there the fastest. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the how they got there, and then you get the, are there more efficient ways to get there today by applying the same principles, because principles don't change. One of my mentors literally reinforced that this weekend when I was in the same room as him. It's like, your principles don't change. Principles are always true. Experiment Nation, you've heard me talk about how multiple investors across the nation are landing these lucrative midterm rental insurance contracts by making these small tweaks on the branding and marketing side, especially if you're an existing short-term rental operator. There is a quick and easy shift that you can make with the right guide in place. And because we've launched a 2-day boot camp that not everyone could attend in real time, I've put together a recording where you can get all the materials and all the guides to focus on rebranding either your short-term rental business or your current midterm rental business, so that you can actually have the insurance companies reach out to you. And then day 2 is, if you want to actually play offense, how you can reach out to them by listing on the right platforms, etc. If you're looking to get this MTR bootcamp so that you can start optimizing and you can start receiving these lucrative contracts that, again, provide less headaches, less turnovers, unlike the Airbnb space, you can start receiving inquiries today by having the right guide in place. So please go to experimentrealestate.com/MTR bootcamp, or click the link in the bio to make sure you get your hands on the midterm rental insurance bootcamp to fast track your way into landing these lucrative insurance contracts the exact same ways multiple investors have taken advantage of this unknown and untapped niche within the midterm rental umbrella. And if anything, principles are microcosms of other principles of each other, right? So when you think of that, if one thing is true in one domain, it's going to be true in the other, right? So that to me is like, wow, fundamentally super cool. I think it's all principles are microcosms of of each other, or something of that nature. But anyways, going back to proximity is key. You want to borrow the belief system, the physiology, and the mental syntax of your mentor, of the person you trade places with, if they're not your mentor, if they're someone that you admire, because their belief system is powerful, because belief leads to action, right? When you believe in something, the only reason you're not taking action in something is because you believe that it might be a waste of your time or it might not work. But if someone, like, if you were to reframe the question, like, what would you do today if you knew you could not fail? If I said, hey, if you do this thing, you will get this result. I mean, you and I both know you're pretty intellectual. If you're listening to this, there's a good chance you're going to do it. The only issue is sometimes is the output is not guaranteed. And so what you need is someone to guide you and say, trust the process. I did it. It worked for me. I'm just like you. I'm no smarter than you. I may be even dumber than you. I may have even had less than what you had when you got started, and it worked for me. You need to borrow the belief system that you can charge higher. You need to borrow the belief system that you can say this to the client. You need to borrow the belief system that you can ask this for the bank. Like, all these things matter in mentorship. So belief system is the thing that leads next to the action, and then the action is the thing that you need to do to then have the thing. Now, I want to talk about the action for a second, because I really had a a kind of a reference point around action this week that really hit me hard. Um, and this is actually something that came from a video I was watching, and it talked about how this actually came from Alex Ramosi. And one of the things that he talked about was like we often um, under um, underappreciate or um what's the word I'm looking for? We we often overlook, or it's not even an overlook, we underestimate. That's what it is. We underestimate how long something can take, or we underestimate how much effort needs to go into something, right? So we underestimate how long the effort will take, or underestimate the level of input that's required to get one output. And the example that he uses, speaking of, let's say, you're looking to acquire a property, and you might think that, okay, you might have looked at one to two deals per week. Maybe you look at a deal per week, and then you speak to your mentor. You find out that that mentor looked at 100 deals before they bought their first deal. Now, that level of perspective is usually what there's a huge disconnect between, how long something took, the amount of reps they're doing, right? Like people say, oh, I called an insurance company. And then you're like, well, how many times you call? And be like, I called once this week. And it's like, okay, so you have a disconnect on like the level of effort that it would take to actually build a real book of business if you wanted to go that route. You call once, you don't get an answer, and you think that's it. Or you call three times, you don't think that's it. Or you miss a step just because now I don't make those calls, but in the beginning I was calling every day. Maybe you've missed that context and level of effort, and therefore a guide or someone who's been in that position is going to help you re um, remeasure the level of output that you need to have, or a level of input that you need to have for the desired output. And I think that's important because in any domain, we often, it gets overlooked how much work is behind it and how much infrastructure is required. And I think it's really important that you have someone that actually tells you the truth, that tells it to you straight, that hey, like whatever you thought, like you're gonna need to do that 10 times X. It's not just set and forget it, because everybody wants an easy way to do things, and I just don't think that's the case. And so it's in your best interest to truly uh work with someone and be in proximity with someone that you actually would believe. Because if there's a disconnect between what they're telling you and what you need to do, then you're not going to do it, and then you're not going to have the result, and then you're going to be like, they scammed me, or this isn't true. But it's like you're not doing the thing you're supposed to do. And I've seen it so many times. I've had many coaches, and I've spoken with them, and they share that there's a frustration with coaching. It's like, I'm telling you what you need to do, and you're going to add your own sauce to it and do it your way. But there's for you to get a certain result, there's a certain way for you to do things. So it's important that you do that. Just like one of my consultant slash coaches recently gave me a script, a sales script that I need to follow. I'm gonna learn it. Then once I master it, then I'm gonna add my own sauce to it, because I know I can. I believe I can communicate very well, but I'm still gonna take the thing that they've given me, because a you have to be humble enough to understand that someone's in a position where they actually have gotten the results that you want by following their method. So why would you instill your method? That would imply that you know better than them. And one of the best things you can do, and one of the things that we look for, I know when I'm working with students, is, are you coachable? If you're not coachable, it's going to be hard to have success, because it's like baking a cake. There's ingredients that must go in a certain order, in a certain way. And when I'm telling you to do something and you do it your own way, or if you don't follow the directions, you want to add your own sauce to it, it's just the recipe is not going to come out the same. And you take enough of these shortcuts or enough of change ingredients, you course correct too many times along the way, and you find yourself in a complete other direction and destination, right? Just like when they say you course correct a plane by like X amount of degrees, by the time you leave the West Coast, by the time you land in the East Coast, you could be in a whole different city. Like that's how marginal the level of error of sensitivity is when it comes to following the process and then trusting it. So I'll leave you with this. Get in a proximity to your mentor. Think about it. Like if there's something that you're trying to do, You should identify top 3 people who are doing that thing, and then identify which person you resonate with the most, and then get in proximity to them. So the action item is this year in 2025, if there's something you're trying to do, my question is, are you in proximity to that person? Can you message them right now? Can you call them? Can you go there in person and ask them a question? That's proximity. And that's why I value masterminds. I have one for my business funding, where I have a coach for that. I have one for my mindset. I have one for my sales training. I have one for my social media. Like, I have consultants in every single field, and I'm doing exactly what you may or may not have been doing. And so it's in your best interest to, you want to get results. Your tooth hurts, you go to the dentist, right? You go to a specialist who can solve the issue, solve the problem. If there's something that's keeping you up at night, there's someone that has the solution that's out there, or there's someone that has the exact same challenge that you had that's overcome it with less than you had. Like, someone out there won with less than you have. And it's in your best interest that you find that person that you resonate with and just pull the trigger so that you can actually get pulled closer towards your dreams. I can't stress that enough. This weekend was magical. Got a chance to connect with one of my other mentors. Got a chance to go to Harvard Business School, see some other great operators where, the private equity, a lot of different topics that are unrelated to here. But for me, a lot of these unrelated topics come well together in my life. And I like to get in proximity of those who have the result that I want, whether it's starting a fund. I was close to fund managers, or private equity, or private credit, lending, everything, just learning, and being in proximity of those who actually have gotten the result, who not only talk the talk, but have walked the walk and have the receipts to show it. Now, my question to you is, where are your receipts? And if you don't have them, are you in proximity of someone who does?
Experimentation. I believe there are 2 critical components that will help you achieve your goals very quickly and succeed. Number 1, it's information like this that you received on a show, in an episode, and content that you can find on my YouTube channel or anybody's channel. And then there's a community. And the way we've been able to expedite our process, the way people in our community, people that we consult, mastermind members, whoever, they get the information on an episode like this, but then they also have the support, whether it's me guiding them or being guided through a community. There is an opportunity for you listening to be able to expedite your process, or even expedite your results that you're seeking by being part of the community. If that is what you're interested in, we at Experiment Nation happen to have a community devoted to helping maximize your occupancy and your profitability altogether, regardless of which market that you are in. And for that reason, you have an opportunity where you can go to experimentrealestate.com/submit if you're looking to work in an environment that can help you prosper faster. Call out any areas that you might not be familiar in, especially the blind spots. That's where a guide comes in hand, and I would be a pleasure and honor to be your guide. But in order to make sure you're a good fit, make sure you go to experimentrealestate.com/submit so that my team can go ahead and take it and see if you're a good fit to join the mastermind and the multiple programs that we have. In addition to that, I'm also now a YouTube partner, which means that I want to give you more access to information, more access to Q&As, more access to the questions that actually come out of our mastermind that help people expedite the process. We've seen people get anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 to $6,000 to even $7,000 a month net on just one door by applying the strategies that we use by working with corporations and furnished accommodation in a very strategic way. So if you're interested, make sure you also subscribe, because I'm going to have different tiers that's on YouTube now that we've become YouTube partner, to continue to be the bridge to your success in your lab. And your lab means your life, your goals, or wherever you're trying to head. So make sure you also hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/real estate experiment. We'll be there. You can also look us up at Mental Insurance Experiment. We will be there. Make sure you hit the subscribe, because that's when you'll know the tiers that are available to you that make sense for you, your marketplace, for your results. Remember, you're only one experiment away. Let's build.
If you got value from this video, if you got value from this show, make sure that you tune in, hit the subscribe button, share it with a friend, share it with someone who needs to hear this. And most importantly, if you are looking to have a guide to land lucrative insurance contracts, turning insurance companies into your tenants so you can have 3x your rental revenue, then make sure you join my challenge. Speaking of proximity, there's going to be a VIP ticket so you can actually come in person, virtually, live, I should say, where you can actually be in proximity to those who are actually getting results, and proximity to me, where I can actually help you actually implement this strategy, because it has been a game changer for us. And I want to help as many homeowners have that access, because there is strength in numbers in this industry, which I will talk about in the challenge. So with that said, if you're looking for guidance, make sure you go to experimentrealestate.com/challenge. And I cannot wait to see you there, to be in proximity to getting more insurance contracts, if that's something that is currently what you are looking for in your lab. See you next time. Cheers.